Muy buenas tardes, bienvenidos a todos a una otra serie de Monday Night Live. Con nosotros tenemos el señor Julio Serrano. Julio, ¿cómo estás?
Mario, muy buenas noches a todos ustedes que nos acompañan este lindo lunes en preparación de la Semana de Acción de Gracias, porque la verdad tenemos Acción de Gracia, tenemos mucho que agradecer en estos tiempos, tenemos que verlo por el lado, ahora sí que el lado amable de las cosas, ¿no? Mario, estamos súper con la energía de siempre, ya sabes, con la energía al 100 para traerles a nuestra gente, nuestros, ahora sí que Facebook videntes, ¿verdad? Un poco de información, compartirles un poco de lo que está pasando, acontecimientos en el fútbol aquí en Estados Unidos, primeramente, para toda la gente latina y toda la gente no latina. Puede ser también que no son latinos, pero quieren seguir nuestra información y adelante, ¿no, Mario?
Efectivamente, no, obviamente tenemos la puerta abierta para todos que nos escuchan y hoy tenemos un guest bastante interesante, ¿no?
No, sin duda, el señor Zac Crawford es una persona súper preparada, una persona que para mí es una persona clave, obviamente, en el fútbol a nivel grassroots aquí en Estados Unidos. Él básicamente es el encargado de todo lo que es la programación educativo, ¿no? De cómo aprender, de cómo seguir aprendiendo y lleva el control y la creación de todo eso. Próximamente hablaremos con él. Su historia es interesante, súper interesante, la verdad, y queremos escuchar más de él ahorita que le demos el espacio. Y le recordamos a todos ustedes que sigan comentando, que sigan compartiendo. Esto va a ser completamente bilingüe para todos los que no saben. Nosotros queremos que la gente, no importa dónde venga, que puedan compartir su historia, y por eso tenemos a Zac esta noche, ¿no, Mario?
Efectivamente. Ya con no tener que esperar un poquito más, Zac está aquí esperando a la espera. Zac, good afternoon. We just wanted to say hi to the public, but most of all, we want to be able to acknowledge and again, thank you for coming on today. How are you doing? Where are you right now in the United States?
Gentlemen, good evening. First of all, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be here with you and with all of the coaches across the United States. And just on behalf of U.S. Soccer, thank you for having me here. Thanks for organizing this. And I'm sorry that my Spanish is not that good.
No pasa nada, Zac, no pasa nada.
Worries,
okay, no worries. Como lo entienden, el señor Zac Crawford está ahorita muy animado de compartir, agradecido con la invitación que se le hizo del Latino Coaches Group, y él está aquí para apoyar y aportar también para nosotros los latinos, explicarnos un poco más de la programación. Breve, antes de seguir, Mario, hay que reconocer a la gente que nos está acompañando, que nos acompaña siempre, la verdad. El amigo Luis Tapia, profesor Luis Tapia, un saludo para usted, señor. Marco Antonio Medina Marca, profesor, muy buenas noches. Nadir Alexander Franco, saludos, señor Nadir. Mauricio Lozada, nuestro amigo de grupo, Mauricio Lozada, muy buenas noches, Mauricio. El hermano Coque Hernández desde Costa Rica, pero ahora en sur de Carolina. Hermano Coque, saludos a usted. Erasmo Correa, muy tu buen amigo, boa noite. Saúd, Caballero Rubio también nos acompaña esta noche. Mucha gente, Mario, mucha gente que está ansioso por escuchar a Zac. Adelante, Mario.
Sí, por supuesto. Pues bienvenidos a todos y me alegro de veros de nuevo. Zac, we want to get into it, obviously, with all this U.S. soccer projects and whatnot. But I think what we really want to first do is let people know a little bit about where you're coming from as a human being, because I think from a distance we can kind of seem like, these people don't know where they're coming from, and we don't know really what their background is. So I think this is an incredible opportunity for us to kind of get to know you as a person and really kind of understand what your grassroots experience was. We had a chance to connect a few days back, and I really enjoyed your story. Could you please start us off a little bit about what grassroots means to you based off of your experience?
Yeah, thanks, Mario. So grassroots is one of those buzzwords that we hear a lot these days. And oftentimes we either don't know what it means, or we think that, it's just grassroots, it's not that important. But really, it's the opposite. Mm-hmm. Grassroots is the most important thing. And once we realize that we're all grassroots, we're part of something that's bigger than ourselves, then we can really start to do things here in our country. So grassroots is so important. It's the game of soccer has given so much to me not only as a coach, but as a person. And Mario, like I told you, when I look through my phone, all my contacts are from football. They're from soccer. And so the grassroots has definitely helped form who I am, not only as a coach, but also as a person. And we know that when we coach, we are not just coaching players, we're also coaching people. So it's a great way to give back as well.
Absolutely.
Sí, para Zac Crawford la importancia de grassroots, que es el nivel fútbol base, es uno de los más importantes. Mucha gente lo toma la palabra de grassroots como tal vez que no importa, es grassroots, pero para él es lo inverso, le importa más, porque sí, todos empezamos en lo que es el fútbol base, el fútbol grassroots, y para él ha sido una gran experiencia esto es lo que es la trayectoria en el fútbol, y el fútbol nos ha dado mucho a todos. Nos ha dado mucho a todos. Y qué mejor manera de regresarle, seguir educando a toda la persona. Adelante, Mario.
Sí. Zac, you gave a really nice brief explanation. We know that the grassroots has so much punch when it comes to the actual influence that it may have on a coach or a child or even an adult, From your point of view, what does grassroots mean with your experience as a player, where you came from, and what did the grassroots experience provide you as you started to develop as a young man and getting into college?
Yeah, thanks, Mario. So, the grassroots opportunities have really just provided connection for people that I probably would not have met otherwise. And this is the beautiful thing about football, is that you can show up to a pitch of grass anywhere in the world, really, and we can all speak the language of football. Yeah. And for me, growing up as a kid, I was very lucky growing up in Memphis, Tennessee, where I had a coach. We were high school age, so people might say, oh, that's not grassroots, but grassroots is all inclusive. Mm-hmm. It's all ages, it's anytime, it's anywhere. And so my coach, when we were grassroots players, even in high school age, and we were a very competitive team, our team had players from all over the world. And that was a beautiful thing. We had players from Mexico, from Chile, from West Liberia, Africa. And our team, we were made up of all parts of the world. Mm-hmm. And we would always scrimmage at the end against this group of older gentlemen. It was a group of Mexicans that would come out and they would play pickup. And so every training session at the end, our coach knew that we loved to play the game, right? Mm-hmm. That's what the kids are always asking us, when are we going to play, coach? When are we going to play? And so we would always play these guys. And at the time I was 16, 17 years old, playing against guys that are 30, 40 years old. And so it was just a great way to interact with people from different cultures that speak different languages through the game of football.
No, básicamente seguimos con la palabra de grassroots y la experiencia de Zac con el nivel grassroots. Cuando él creció en Memphis, Tennessee, en esa parte del país, tuvo la fortuna y la dicha de una experiencia muy, muy grata, que cuando estuvo a nivel de high school, pero muchos dicen, bueno, eso no es nivel formativo, no es nivel high school, pero el grassroots en sí es fútbol para todos y para todos. Entonces, la verdad que tuvo la experiencia de jugar con centroamericanos, con chilenos, con gente de West Liberia, de África, y eso es lo que realmente nos une, es el fútbol. Y gracias a la diversidad del fútbol, él ha conocido gente, excelente gente en toda parte del mundo y en todas partes del país. Entonces, eso es lo que su experiencia lo ha enseñado, que la diversidad es la clave. Y obviamente queremos seguir compartiendo la información. Rápidamente vamos a mandar saludos a toda la gente antes de seguir, Mario. Our friend Sean Green, muy buenas noches. Gracias for following us, Sean. Saludos desde Salt Lake City. Roy, un saludo para Roy que nos acompaña desde Salt Lake City. Gracias, Roy. También nuestro amigo Augusto Recinos, presidente de Liga Segunda División de Guatemala. Salud, profesor. Claro que sí, con mucho gusto. Nader Alexander desde Arkansas. Nader Alexander Franco, saludos desde Arkansas, encantado de escuchar la información que van a compartir de Grassroots. Me gustaría hablar con ustedes para más información. Claro que sí, Nader, para eso estamos, para eso está Zac esta noche, y nuestra amiga de siempre, nuestra amiga Luisa, totalmente de acuerdo con Zac, no importa qué edad, de dónde todos hablamos el mismo idioma que es el fútbol. Exactamente, Luisa, exactamente, Zac. El fútbol nos une. así de fácil, así de fácil. Adelante, Mario.
Sí, efectivamente. So, Zac, you're talking about having this incredible experience to be able to not only have a team that's rich in diversity, but also having that competitive nature of, okay, it doesn't matter if it's an affiliated team or not, you guys begin to play. Now, at 16, 17, you're obviously quite cognizant of what this implies in terms of looking around and saying, hey, these people are coming from all different parts of the world. Did this begin to kind of resonate with you in terms of saying, hey, listen, soccer, football is much bigger than what it is just in a game? Did it begin to strike you as, hey, this is actually bringing a lot of people involved? Or when did that really start to play dividends in the way that you perceived football?
Yeah, I think every experience that we have is an opportunity to take a different perspective on it, if we're willing to. And I know that as I was growing up in high school, I went to a public school, I went to a private school, I went to different schools. I had friends from all over, but it was really soccer, it was football that really gave me a pathway to see how big the world is, and that it's a lot bigger than just my own little bubble in Memphis. I was lucky enough to get a college scholarship and move on and play collegiately, where there were 17 different nationalities on my team, and it was beautiful. I mean, it was great just to learn lessons from people about their cultures and share what we do here in America. Mm-hmm. And then also, thinking about this, fast forward 10, 20 years later, I have friends all across the world now. So if I'm lucky enough to travel someplace, I can call up an old roommate, someone I used to play soccer with, whoever, and it's like, hey, come on in. And hey, here's my family. This is Zac. He's like family. And even just a couple of years ago, I was in my best friend's wedding. I hadn't seen him say best friend. We were best friends growing up. It's 20 years since we had last played together. And he invited me to stand in his wedding. And I was very proud to go and be there and part of that. So between, growing up, playing on that grassroots team, playing in college with the multinational team, to even as an adult, when I went to graduate school at University of Alabama, I was on the club team there as a graduate student. And after I kind of stepped away from the club team, we were like, where do we play as adults? And the only place for us to play was the Latin League, the Latino League. And there were like 23 teams, and we made the 24th team. And because we knew people from the soccer community, they were like, yeah, come on, bring your team. And so we formed a multicultural team there. We were called Tuscaloosa Nations. We had friends from all over, and I was getting invited to quinceañeras and all kinds of things. It was brilliant. And even this is the great part about this league, right? Here we are in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. The whole league only spoke Spanish. So if we spoke English to the referee or whoever, we would get a yellow card, arbitro. So we just didn't say anything. And we just played, and it was beautiful. Just the connections that we made, friends, family, connections all over the world. That's the beautiful thing about soccer.
No, sin duda, o sea, que lo más bello del fútbol obviamente son las conexiones, la gente que conocemos. En la experiencia de Zac, obviamente, jugando nivel fútbol base, colegial, nivel en un club de adultos, después de que se graduó del colegio y se fue a hacer su posgrado, de pronto no se encontraba la situación con no había dónde jugar como adulto y estaban en Alabama. Entonces, ¿qué pasó? Se unió a la Liga Latina. De donde quiera que esté, hay una Liga Latina fuerte en este país. Ellos crearon el equipo número 24 de la liga y lo chistoso es de que hoy día tiene muy gratos recuerdos de todas esas experiencias de las personas que tienen una cultura diferente. Muy gratos recuerdos él tiene. Obviamente también tuvo la oportunidad de conocer a muy buenos amigos, estar en muchas bodas, y recientemente tuvo la boda de un amigo de más de 20 años. Lo que hace el fútbol nos une, nos sigue uniendo, es el mismo mensaje, ¿verdad? Y porque porque exactamente, lo comenta el profesor John, porque no son 90 minutos, es toda una vida. Exactamente, profesor John, así es, no nomás son 90 minutos, y la verdad que me agrada que tener mucho a Zac, porque Zac ha aportado muchísimo a este país a nivel futbolístico en el formativo, y pues queremos agradecerlos. El hermano Arnoldo Vázquez desde Panamá, ahora en Chicago, apoyando a la mejor organización. Gracias, Arnoldo, porque usted es miembro, por eso lo apoya con mucho fervor. Adelante, Mario.
Yeah, no, Zach, it's such a cool way to hear how someone from Tennessee ends up going to Alabama, and there's such a Latino rich community even there. For those that don't really realize how big this country is, it's absolutely massive, right? It's absolutely massive, and to see that there's these little pockets of people playing soccer, whether it be a league or whether it be having to adjust, you start to see probably say, hey, listen, I'm actually in the league, or it predominantly speaks Spanish. When you began to have contact with that, again, was your mind beginning to see even more so, hey, listen, man, there's a lot of Latinos in this country. I mean, we're playing in Alabama right now, and I'm being able to speak with the referee in Spanish. When did that sort of click begin to arise?
Yeah, it was great because even in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, small city, there was enough teams for 2 leagues.
Yeah.
And we would take the best players from Tuscaloosa and we would go play an all-star game against the best players from Birmingham. And then we would take the best players from Alabama and play. So it was kind of like its own form of ODP for adults.
Absolutely.
Because we were, just taking the best players from wherever and playing. So we had our kind of our grassroots league, and then we would take the best of the best and play against each other. And it was always so cool to see, even just within the state, even if, people from Mexico's a huge country. Colombia is a huge country. Ecuador, everybody's a huge country. And so you see even different pockets of Mexicans or different pockets of Colombians that maybe didn't know each other, but are living 45 minutes away from each other. So it was really cool to have that experience and really just open up more potential connections for friends and relationships.
Sí. Y la verdad, para la gente que no se entera, el país de Estados Unidos es enorme. En cantidad de tierra es enorme. Entonces, es muy difícil recorrer todo el país. Pero es interesante, Mario, que nos comenta Zac, que en Alabama, históricamente un lugar en el sur del país, históricamente se cree que pues se percibe que no hay mucho latino ahí porque no es una ciudad o un estado mayor, ¿no? Pero hay latinos, y como lo acaba de comentar Zac, que había suficiente jugadores para crear 2 ligas. 2 ligas. Entonces, el impacto de la comunidad latina es tremenda en este país, y Zac está para apoyar, obviamente está para apoyar y aportar a nuestra comunidad latina, y por eso lo hemos invitado esta noche. Real quick, Zac, Jean-Pierre Mojica says hello to you. Excelente profesional, Zac. Fue mi instructor en el DOC license y aprendí muchísimo de él. So again, the impact that Zac has, el impacto que ha tenido Zac, no solo en sus alumnos, ¿verdad? En sus amigos, en sus familiares y obviamente en sus compañeros de equipo, ¿no? La verdad, muchas gracias, Zac. Mario.
Yes. Mario, can I add to that too?
Sure.
The great part about that was we were adults that were playing, but everybody had kids. And so these kids needed someplace to play. So really the best part of the story is yet to be told, because these kids, now we were able to get them together and get them playing, whether it was grassroots or whether it was, pickup games, or whether it was actual organized soccer and getting them into leagues and potentially into ODP and other things, other avenues for these players.
Okay.
So the really cool part of it was, hey, I know Zac now. I trust Zac because we play together. I trust you with my kid. And for someone to trust their kid with you, there's nothing better, because that's their most prized possession.
Sin duda. Y la mejor parte, obviamente, de la historia es de que todos eran adultos, pero ya tenían niños, tenían hijos. Entonces, de pronto ya se empieza a unir la gente, se empieza a crear un ámbito yo conozco a Zac y Zac es mi amigo y confiamos en Zac, entonces puedo apoyar también a los jugadores, a apoyar a los jóvenes, y empezar a apoyarlos y sacarlos y también exponerlos y también abrirles puertas, que de eso se trata, ¿no? De abrir puertas, de seguir abogando, educando y sirviendo, y Zac lo hizo con sus amigos y sus amistades. Pero lo más interesante que le digo siempre a Zac, que la parte de asimilación tiene que ser compartida, no puede ser nomás de una calle o de una vía. ¿Sí me entiendes? No podemos esperar como sociedad, por ejemplo, aquí en Estados Unidos, que toda la gente se adapte sin encontrarlos a medias. ¿Sí me entiendes? The burden of assimilation, Zach, as we talked about before, should be shared. And I think it's important to note that that's what you were doing when you were playing in the adult leagues and with those friends and and people that you got to meet. You were going to them and their communities and hanging out with them and playing soccer with them. So that's why the trust developed, and I think that's important to note, because that's the burden of assimilation. We have to share it. We can't expect people to become and assimilate if we're not helping that process with them, kind of thing.
Yeah, and Julio, you said a really important word, which is a great way for me to add this into the segment, which is the word trust. Right? We spoke about that before, Zach, and Julio was just alluding to it now. The word trust, and this is a big word, but I want to know, Zach, from your point of view, how important is trust, and where do you see that being an element in terms of being a grassroots coach and being someone that's in the position that you are? What does the word trust mean to you?
I think trust is paramount, right? Before you can act on anything, that trust factor has to be there, and you have to feel comfortable in the situation that you're in, comfortable with the people that you're around, and trust in that to actually act on any situation, to behave in a certain way. So trust takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. You have to do what you say and say what you do, and you have to follow through, even when it's difficult and when it's challenging. So, years of playing in that league, right? Years of developing friendships. It doesn't happen overnight. You don't go into someone's community and say, "Hey, your kids are really good at soccer. You should come play for me because we have the best club." It doesn't work that way. They need to know that they can trust you with their kid. Even back in, let's just say, the old days where, the coach would go pick up the kids and take them to practice type thing, right? That trust, that level of trust has to be there. Now, in this day and age, with coaches can't be around kids and on their own and all that, you know what I mean? They have other adults around. So maybe that's not the best analogy, but I think the message is still the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah. No, la verdad que Zach lo ha comentado, que esa palabra de confianza, ¿no? De crear esa confianza, ese entorno de confianza que para que no simplemente vas a la comunidad de una persona y te impones y dices, yo soy fulano. Tienen que desarrollar y toma tiempo, Mario, toma tiempo, como lo comenta Zach, toma tiempo desarrollar esa confianza, y obviamente ese nivel de confianza no pasa de noche a la mañana.
Yeah, absolutely.
Y eso es lo importante, no más es llegar y plantar y decir que tu club es el mejor sin tener esa relación con la gente, porque la gente tiene que confiar en ti con sus hijos, porque es el regalo tal vez más grande que ellos tienen en su vida. Son sus hijos. Entonces tenemos que también ser conscientes de eso, desarrollar esa confianza y tenerlo todo junto.
Efectivamente. Now, Zach, when we're talking about trust and talking about how important it is, when you guys have, I mean, let's start looking at what it is to be a grassroots instructor or a grassroots coach, right? And you're talking about trust. Do you feel that you're able to transmit that message and people are starting to understand it because of the implication that it has when it comes to developing a young player? What does that look like for you as an instructor and as a coach, sharing your vision and having them understand what the word trust means?
Yeah, so a lot of layers to unpack there. First level is the trust between the player and the coach, and maybe even before that, there has to be trust between the parent and the coach, like we just mentioned. And then now the coach needs learning. So where does the coach go? The coach goes to school, to soccer school, to go get a license. Or diploma or certificate. So now the coach has to trust the instructor with a similar relationship that, hey, this person is going to take me on a journey, right? And this is kind of the definition of the word coach, is that you're going to take a person on a journey from point A to point B, right? And you're going to help them achieve their goals along the way. So trust has to be there for all of that. If I'm going to let you take me on a journey, I have to trust that you're going to have my best principles at heart.
I love that.
Igual, Mario, ¿verdad? La confianza también del técnico, ¿verdad? Con la asociación o la escuela donde se quiere formar el coach, porque la formación, lo hemos dicho en este programa, la formación es la gran manera de seguir aprendiendo. Entonces también, Zach, tienes razón, no nomás es la confianza del jugador con el coach, es el coach con el club, el coach con la comunidad, el coach con la escuela de fútbol, en este caso US Soccer, ¿verdad? Tenemos que tener esa confianza que nos van a guiar sobre el camino correcto, que nos van a guiar a un nivel que nosotros queramos alcanzar, ¿no? Tenemos que también tener ese tipo de confianza. Antes de seguir, Mario y Isaac, la verdad, para ya preguntar unas cosas un poquito más detalladas ahorita a fondo, Javier Cruz nos saluda de San Francisco, California. Profesor Javier, espero que estés bien. Saludos a todos desde el sur de Chicago. Coach Tony González, saludos, Coach Tony. And now, Zach, you know, I think people are really starting to get in a lot of positive feedback from everybody. They're just waiting, you know, for maybe any news or any information, because I've found in the past, as you and I have talked, right? Hace falta ese puente, ese bridge para juntarnos más, right? And I think this is a great way for us to do that, Mario. I know you have some questions lined up for him. Victor Flores from Portland, Oregon. Saludos, Victor Flores. Grande Victor Flores. Go ahead, Mario.
Yeah, no, you know, I think really it's been going. Really, what we're looking to explore, as well as we're beginning to allow people get to know where you're coming from, Zach. It's equally important for people to understand the projects, yes, but the people that are making the decisions that are involved with them. I would say equally, with that said, having spoken about trust and what you're talking about here is being able to take a person and make sure that they trust you from going from point A to point B, and what that actually entails. How would you explain that in terms of looking at the grassroots courses and all the other courses, to be said, but let's just say looking at the grassroots courses, where does trust come in so that someone that's entering in a grassroots course and that there's the C, the B, and the A license say, I trust the federation because I know how to trust, how does that look like in your courses in terms of developing them and applying them?
So I think it's important to start with, you know, you see this here, right? And maybe it's the mirror image is reversed. This is over my heart, right? Underneath every one of these is a heart, which means there's a real person behind it. So when you go to take a grassroots course, we have over 500 licensed instructors across the country. And my role is to organize essentially these part-time instructors, because anyone who teaches a course, it's not for most of them, it's not their primary job. Correct. It's not even their secondary job. Most of them work a primary job. They coach on the side. And Julio, you're shaking your head because I think you instruct courses as like a fourth-time job because you got everything else that's in front of it. But at the end of the day, both of you know as instructors, and Eloisa and a few others on here, is that you're all real people. And when someone steps into a course, they may see this, right? They may see US Soccer. They need to remember that the person in front of them is a real person. And my role, my job, is to make sure the instructors see the candidates, the learners that come into the course as a real person with real needs as well.
Ese es clave, ¿no? Que también el trabajo de Zac es detrás de cada escudo está un corazón y está una persona humana. Entonces, el trabajo de Zac es de que los instructores veamos a los candidatos también como personas, al igual que nosotros, porque la mayoría de los instructores, como tú lo sabes, Mario, lo hemos platicado hoy también, y Edmundo Loy también está en la llamada, Eloisa, todos los que somos instructores para la federación, no somos de tiempo completo. Entonces, tal vez ese es nuestro tercer y cuarto trabajo, de pronto, ¿no? Entonces, también el trabajo nuestro, como instructores, también es que nos vean como personas, que todos cometemos errores, todos somos humanos. Entonces, eso es lo primordial. Lo que quiere Zac es que todos seamos humanos y que nos tratemos como tal. Para mí, ese es el mensaje, básicamente, ¿no?
Sí.
Entonces,
sí.
Básicamente, entonces ese mensaje que Zac quiere llevar, y lo tengo tiempo conociendo a Zac, le agradezco a Zac todo su tiempo, pero tengo mucho tiempo conociéndolo, en unos 3, 4 años ya, y en esos 3 años, de lo que él dice, eso es. Así de simple. Entonces, él está ganándose la confianza de la gente, y es importante recargar, como coach también tiene que hacer lo mismo, Mario.
Sí.
Y crear ese tipo de confianza, ¿no?
Absolutely. And Zac, talking about, and I really liked how you were able to look at it and say, listen, at the end of the day, badge or no badge, we're talking about one human being to another, right? And I think with regards to trust, we're bringing in trust, but we're also bringing in these honest conversations, right? And with so many hot topics now being spoken about in terms of equity and diversity and inclusion, you have this incredible track record of obviously being involved with people from all different backgrounds, working at Grassroots. You're in the U.S. Soccer Federation, talking about trust. When we talk about these honest conversations, what do these honest conversations look like for U.S. soccer moving forward in terms of looking at the current landscape of the United States from top to bottom, Latino community, what else, the element of Spanish in any type of courses. What does that look like from your point of view?
Yeah, so we have a goal now to aim higher. So we aim high. That's our goal. We want to aim as high as we possibly can. And to do that, we need to be as diverse and as inclusive as possible to do that. Mm-hmm. This is one of the great strengths of our country. When I've been to UEFA, when I've been to other countries, last summer I was at a UEFA Grassroots convention with all 55 federations, right?
Wow.
We have 55 state associations here in the US.
Yeah.
Plus many other members that register players. We have 110 members here within our country. So by us accepting and really embracing who we are, all aspects, all walks of life, all colors, creeds, whatever, we're only stronger together. And when I go and visit UEFA or whoever else, they're always like in awe of how big we are, everything we have, but they're also, I can tell, a little bit like scared that, hey, if they ever all get on the same page,
look out, big beast.
No, monster.
Sin duda. Y eso es lo que queremos comentar, y siempre lo hemos comentado aquí, Mario. Lo dice Zac. No lo crean porque nosotros lo decimos, porque lo dice Zac. Cuando él ha asistido a congresos de la UEFA, ellos están sorprendidos de qué tan grande es Estados Unidos. Tenemos 56 asociaciones estatales, simplemente estatales, 56 asociaciones, y más de 110 organizaciones que pueden registrar jugadores, Mario. Uh-huh. Es enorme este país, a nivel futbolístico, a nivel de gente, a nivel de terreno, es enorme. Y Zac dice que toda la gente de UEFA o los lugares que ha ido están sorprendidos a darse cuenta de qué tan grande es Estados Unidos, en nivel de números. Pero él también se da cuenta, que yo y tú y Mario lo hemos comentado, y muchos de este grupo lo hemos comentado, que también tiene un poco de temor, porque el día que nosotros como Estados Unidos unamos los criterios, nos pongamos a trabajar en la misma página, cuidado,
yeah.
Porque Estados Unidos va a ser y se va a convertir en potencia mundial.
Yeah.
Se va a convertir.
Did you guys watch the last national team game against Panama?
Sí,
yeah.
Sí.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Right? Que nos disculpe el amigo Arnoldo, el panameño. Arnoldo, 6-2, disculpa, 6-2, fue 6-2 nomás, pero sí, ahí es un gran ejemplo, como lo dice Zac. La última versión de Estados Unidos varonil, la diversidad hermosa, la diversidad que es este país, que realmente son los representativos de este país, ¿verdad, Mario? Y cuando lleguemos a darnos cuenta, y como lo dice Zac, when we get all on the same page, look out. Porque la verdad que vienen cosas muy interesantes. A lot of good things are coming. You know, if we start to get on the same page and see each other as humans. You know, I think it's good stuff. It's good stuff. Real quick, Mario, before we get going, nuestro amigo Marcelo Antonelli, un abrazo desde California. Saludos, profesor Edmundo Loy Urbina. Loy's on the call tonight. Buenas noches, Loy. Muy buenas noches. Un fraterno saludo. El amigo Mario Alejandro desde Ecuador, desde Quito, Ecuador. Saludos, Mario. Saludos, hermano. Muchas gracias. Un abrazo igualmente. También el amigo Andrés Segovia desde Perú. Saludos, hermano Andrés Segovia. Zac, antes de seguir, hay una pregunta de Mauricio Lozada que nos tiene esta pregunta, Zac. Besides how to build trust, what are some skills or quality grassroots coaches should learn from U.S. soccer, Zac?
So the big tenet of our courses, from grassroots all the way through to pro, is creating a learner-centered environment. Because it's the same thing that a coach should do, is to create a player-centered environment. Mm-hmm. So some skills and knowledge that a grassroots coach needs to know and have is to be able to ask him or herself this question of who is in front of me and what are their needs? And instead of taking a coach-centered approach, can I take a player-centered approach? And it's the same thing in our courses. As instructors, we say, don't take an instructor-centered approach. Take a learner-centered or a coach-centered approach, a learner-centered approach. So that way we have our curriculum, we have the things that we teach. We have the 6 tasks of a coach that are the same from grassroots through to pro. Coaching games, coaching training sessions, that's what coaching courses have been about for the longest time. But we believe there are 4 other tasks that are just as important as coaching games and coaching training sessions. And without these other 4, it doesn't matter how good you are at coaching games and coaching training sessions if you're not good at also leading the team. So how do you get a group of individuals on the same page? Leading the player, providing unconditional attention for every single player on your team, regardless of ability level. Managing your performance environment. So how do you help the parents and everyone get on the same page? And then finally, leadership. How do you lead yourself so that you can lead others? So to be able to lead others, you must first be able to lead yourself. So that starts a lot with reflection, with what your current behaviors are. What do you value? What are your beliefs? What are your philosophies on the game? And then really just understanding why you believe in what you believe in. Those are some of the things that we do in the courses there, Mauricio. But I think the 6 tasks of a coach is probably a good starting point. And when we look at from grassroots through to pro, those 6 tasks, like I said, are there. It's just you develop more competencies as you progress. When you go from grassroots to D, from D to C, you're developing more and more competencies in those 6 tasks. So I think asking yourself the question, who is in front of me and what are their needs, is very important to create this learner-centered environment.
La buena pregunta de Mauricio, la verdad que obviamente tenemos que primero como entrenadores ver quién está enfrente de nosotros. ¿Quién está enfrente de nosotros? ¿Qué son las necesidades de ellos? Y de pronto es el ambiente, un ambiente de aprendizaje, es el que queremos cultivar y es el que queremos fomentar. Y también en la escuela de US Soccer, también lo mismo. Quieren crear un ambiente donde el candidato pueda aprender y sea enfocado más en el candidato. Como también queremos los coaches que se enfoquen, que sea más en torno al jugador. Entonces hay seis trabajos de coach, obviamente como instructores lo sabemos. Uno es ser el coach en el partido, en el entrenamiento, ¿verdad? Liderar el equipo, liderar el individuo, manejar también tu entorno de performance, de pronto, porque el coaching en el juego, el coaching en el entrenamiento siempre han existido, pero US Soccer cree que esos seis trabajos de coach tienen que hacerse en conjunto para ser un coach realmente completo. Y lo hemos dicho aquí en este programa también, Mario, coaches somos todólogos. Tenemos que saber de todo. No nomás es coach en el juego, coach en el entrenamiento. Tenemos que saber de planificación, de psicología, de grupo, de liderazgo, todo. Tenemos que saber de todo un poco. Y es un buen lugar para empezar en los cursos de Grassroots. Y algo que quiero aclarar. Los 6 elementos los 6 trabajos de un coach va desde nivel base, que es Grassroots, hasta la licencia pro en Estados Unidos. Es lo mismo que trabajan los coaches de fútbol base que los profesionales, obviamente con más detalles y más información, obviamente, ¿no? En cada etapa, ¿verdad? Y sí, la verdad que excelente. Adelante, Mario. Tenemos muchas preguntas, pero la gente está muy, muy, muy entregada a este programa. Adelante, Mario.
Sí. Zac, you had said something very interesting earlier, which was when you're at these conventions and you're seeing all these representatives from all different parts of the world, they're starting to see how big the United States is. And you had alluded to, hey, listen, when we get on the same page, this is going to be one big machine that's going to be moving forward. From your point of view, you guys are obviously creating an incredible line of consistency from the grassroots to the A license. What would you say could be added, or what would you say are in the motions of being added in order to create that alignment between all these big moving pieces in such a big country?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me clarify that we are on top. Our women have won the World Cup the last 2 years, right? So we can't forget that as well. And when when we go to the other countries, everyone's like, what are you doing in the female game? What are you doing in the female game? So they want to know all of that. So what are some ways that, we can continue to build on diversity and inclusion? I think it starts with a simple concept, in that diversity and inclusion is not an afterthought, but it's a focus. Mm-hmm. It's not after you create something or write something or develop something to come and get, the sign off from someone else. It's about collaboration. It's about getting people in the room and listening to people, even though sometimes it may be something that you don't want to hear. Behind every critique, and every complaint, there's a request that's in there. And so you just have to get through all of the negative stuff to get to the request or whatever it is. And oftentimes it's not even negative. If you develop relationships and you have rapport and you have this trust with people, then it's not an afterthought. It's ownership. It's this collaboration that's there from the beginning. So, trying to give you details on what that looks like, it's really difficult because people don't understand. Unless you're in this role, unless you're in a role that you oversee an entire country, it's really hard to explain that, to say, hey, we take these macro steps, but everybody wants to see micro steps. Well, what are you doing for me in my community? And, with that, I'd like to turn it back to say, what are you doing in your community? Mm-hmm. Right. And how can we help you with that? Because we don't always know what's going on, every single community all across the country. There's people out there that have needs, and we need, like we said earlier, with the bridge, you got to build the bridge from both sides of the river. Because if we don't know what you need, it's hard to help. And sometimes maybe you don't need anything from us. Maybe one side needs something from the other side.
Sure.
Maybe I need some information, or I need to know what your needs are to help. So I think, from a macro level, it's about being a focus instead of an afterthought. Mm-hmm. And on a micro level, it's more of a challenge to each person that's listening to go and get 5 other people that and say, hey, what are we going to do? Right? Not what is someone going to do for me? What's the federation going to do for me? What are we going to do? And how are we going to utilize the federation? Whoever it is, U.S. Club Soccer, AYSO, your local state association, whoever it is, how are you going to go and show them who you are and what your needs are?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
No, sin duda, la verdad. Y Zac lo comenta, que la diversidad no puede ser un pensamiento después. Tiene que ser desde el inicio. La diversidad tiene que crearse desde el inicio, y la confianza se tiene que ganar. Porque mucha gente lo ve solamente en su plan de micro, cómo me afecta a mí directamente, personalmente. Pero no, tenemos que ver el macro. Y estando en una posición como tiene Zac, que está encargado básicamente del fútbol formativo de todo el país, es difícil contarlo, porque no te das cuenta. Las necesidades de todas las comunidades son diferentes. Pero Zac nos reta de no decir qué puede hacer por mí la asociación. No, hay que juntarnos como nosotros en este grupo, nosotros 3, o los gentes, ¿qué podemos hacer nosotros con la asociación, con la federación, para mostrar quién somos? Porque de pronto, Mario, lo hemos visto, ¿no? En correos, mensajes que hemos recibido, ¿no? De plano, la idea es de qué podemos hacer nosotros para mejorar la situación, y no poner excusas de qué la federación puede hacer por nosotros, no que verlo así. Y es el famoso puente que hablamos aquí yo. El puente se construye desde los dos lados. Uh-huh. No nomás se construye de un lado para el otro, se construye de los dos lados para encontrarse en la mitad. Entonces, eso es lo que tenemos que tomar en cuenta, ¿no? De pronto la gente, estamos tal vez erróneamente en nuestros pensamientos, pero yo creo que eso es realmente la diversidad, la colaboración, uh-huh. La colaboración de compañerismo, de hablar, ¿sí me entiendes? Así es de que hay diferentes cosas que podemos platicar, pero tenemos algunas preguntas, Zac. Si nos permites, el amigo Coque Hernández nos pregunta, Zac, ¿qué es una cosa que quieres mejorar en Grassroots? Zac, what's one thing that you would like to improve within the Grassroots? I'm assuming just the game in general, Zac.
I think that's a really great question, because there's so much to improve, right? Mm-hmm. And what we do in Grassroots, we don't see the immediate impact. Mm-hmm. What we do in Grassroots is we plant seeds. and we water them, and ultimately they grow. And these seeds, what we're talking about, are players, our children, and they eventually grow up to become coaches, referees, team parents. But maybe more importantly than that, they grow up to become doctors, lawyers, teachers. So while they won't all become professional soccer players, they will become professionals in life. And so there's a lot within Grassroots. And I think if there was one thing I could change about it, it would be the connotation of Grassroots. In the rest of the world, it seems that Grassroots is so cool. Like everybody wants to be a part of Grassroots. When, in fact, with UEFA, I'm still part of the UEFA Grassroots family, right? They send out emails to Grassroots family. And unfortunately, we just heard of the passing of one of our colleagues from Belarus. But it was, around this idea of family, and we lost a family member. I would like to have that feeling of Grassroots here in our country. That, one nation, one team. Una nación, un equipo.
Yeah, una nación, un equipo.
We're all one nation, one team. And if we can realize that as Grassroots, we impact the future, and Grassroots becomes cool, that would be one thing that I think that we're moving towards.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Y creo que básicamente el amigo Zac nos comenta que es una muy buena pregunta, porque al nivel formativo, al nivel Grassroots, tal vez no miremos el fruto de nuestro trabajo. No lo vamos a mirar. Pero plantamos la semilla, la regamos, la cultivamos, la cuidamos. Entonces, esa es la importancia de Grassroots. Y una cosa de mejorar, obviamente, es ese sentido de familia, que todos estamos unidos, que todos estamos en un equipo moviéndonos hacia adelante, que es lo esencial, que siempre lo hemos platicado aquí en el grupo y también con Zac, que es una familia. Y obviamente muy buena pregunta, Coque, la verdad, y como hay mucho que mejorar, ¿verdad? Pero para él eso es lo importante, que Grassroots se vuelva cool, el trabajo formativo se vuelva cool, que nosotros nos sentamos orgullosos de ser formadores de Grassroots.
Sorry, go ahead, Leo.
No, go ahead, Zach, go ahead.
I was going to say a story that this reminds me of we are all Grassroots. Is when I was in Alabama, I had the privilege of working with some very good people, some very good players. A couple of them you may know by name: Brandon Cervania, Tanner Tessman. They play at FC Dallas. Mm-hmm. Chris Richards, also from Alabama, plays at Bayern Munich now. Right? You know those names, but the names that you don't know are names like Gavin Owens, like a Justin Thomas. Right? These were kids that were on the team now that have gone off to college or graduating college, right? Same team as the guys that are playing professional, but now these kids are into coaching or they're into giving back to their communities. And that's the beautiful thing. That's what we need to realize, is that Grassroots gives us both. Mm-hmm. Grassroots is not just the jumping board for those that want to go and become professionals. Grassroots is all of us. And it's a way for us to continue to play long after our more serious careers are over with. Like if you go play pickup Sunday beer league soccer, you're a Grassroots player, right? And once we realize that, hey, if you're not on the professional pathway, then you're Grassroots, and it's not a bad thing. It's actually a really cool thing.
Yeah. Queremos crear esa mentalidad, Zac, en Grassroots, de ese pensamiento de un fanático desde la cuna hasta la tumba. Cradle to the grave mentality, right? Zac, correct me if I'm wrong. Desde la cuna a la tumba del amor al fútbol, ¿verdad? Después de que nuestras carreras termine, tal vez nos bajamos del camión y nos torcimos la rodilla y se nos acabó la carrera futbolística en ese momento, pero, o sea, amar el fútbol y compartir el fútbol, que es lo más importante, ¿no? De ser el Grassroots. Mario, me parece que hay muchas preguntas buenas. También queremos hacer, there's a lot of questions, Zac, that we have. And, Cesar Luis asked this. I already know the answer to this, but I want to ask it because I want to help explain this to help educate. Hello, some European South American countries see perception, decision, execution, and USSF leading the courses towards this pathway. And Zac, I'm going to let you answer that question.
Yeah, so this has actually already been in our curriculum for a while now, at least over a year for sure. And the way that we teach it is to perceive, decide, act. We changed the word from execution to act just to simplify it. And then the fourth part that I saw was missing on the question was reflection, because we want players to be autonomous players, right? So perceive the situation, read the soccer situation, right? The player has to do that because it's a player's game, not a coach's game.
Yes, sir.
Then they decide on what they perceive. Then they act on their decision. Then they need to reflect on the actions they took, whether it was correct or incorrect, and go back through the circle again.
Claro. Y es el simplemente ciclo de decisión, ¿no? Hay que percibir, hay que actuar, hay que ejecutar, y después la última parte, Mario, que siempre lo practicamos, ¿cuál es? La reflexión, Mario.
Reflection, man.
Porque siempre lo hemos dicho, que el aprendizaje no termina con la experiencia. We always talk about this, Zach, that experience does not end with just the experience itself. It's the reflection we have afterwards that completes our learning. And then we go back to it again, right? Lo has dicho, and then we go back into that circle again. And algo también quiero mencionar, something I also want to mention real quick, Zach, son los key qualities, los 6 key qualities del jugador que buscamos. El primero, ¿cuál es, Zach? ¿Cuál es el key quality primero, Zach?
Read the game and make decisions. Read and understand the game and make decisions.
Básicamente. Y hay un orden específico. There's a specific order, obviously, to the key qualities, right? But those are U.S. Soccer's key qualities. That's how we teach it, right? Obviously, you could have your own depending on how you view the game. No problem with that, right? But U.S. Soccer says read and understand the game. That's our first key quality in a player. And so that's why I think it's important to note that it's already in our curriculum. It's already in our education system, is that reading and understanding the game, that perceiving, the acting, and the reflection will be very, very, very important. So I think that's why it's so important, Zach, that we have to have these kind of platforms.
Yeah.
That we educate and continue to educate and continue to advocate, right? And to help everybody understand where we're coming from. Because again, Zach, like we've talked about, you and I have talked about, and Mario, we talked about in the summer, the more we talk, the more we find we have more similarities and differences. So nomás, gracias, profesor César Luis, muchas gracias por su pregunta, la verdad, muy buena pregunta, y mucha gente tal vez no se entera aún de qué se trata la educación de la federación. Mario es estudiante, yo soy estudiante de la federación, el profesor Edmundo Loy también, Coque Hernández también, todos los que estamos aquí, veo gente, amigos de nosotros que han formado parte de algún curso federativo, se da cuenta de que las cosas han cambiado. La verdad, y se lo he comentado a Zach. I have also mentioned to you, Zach, that I'm dating myself here, and but I experienced the old U.S. Soccer way, and now the more modern, progressive style. And I'm very, very, very happy. Like I told you before, I can see the difference night and day. And the learner center environment has completely changed our journey. I think I can't thank the federation enough for that. You know what I'm saying? Y quiero darme cuenta que tal vez me estoy deleitando de la edad, pero yo tuve la ventaja de ver el viejo sistema educativo federativo y el nuevo. Y sin duda, Mario, tú has sido parte de ese proceso. También nos puedes contar un poco en español, un poquito antes de seguir, de tu experiencia en esto, de lo que es la federación.
Sí, efectivamente. Tenía la gran oportunidad de haberme educado en tanto como en Estados Unidos como en Europa y sin duda ninguna lo que he encontrado con estar aquí en Estados Unidos es el hecho que no solo que tienen los componentes bien claros, pero sobre todo actúan desde un punto de vista bien claro, ¿no? Hacer que el entorno sea para el jugador, no para el entrenador. Manteniendo una línea para que sea holístico, orgánico, que sea lo más real hacia el juego, que sea experimentativo a través de juegos reales. Para mí todo tiene tantísimo sentido que para educarme como entrenador y también como instructor fue es una bendición. Simplemente no tengo nada menos que palabras de agradecimiento. And just to let you know, Zach, like I said, we've spoken about this in the past, and the ability that I've had an experience in Europe and here is that there's these components that lie within the U.S. Soccer curriculum that I think are so clear, but most importantly, it's just so there's something organic about being able to make it a player-centered approach by maintaining that it's becoming revolves around experiential learning that's holistic, that is
reality-based.
Reality-based. These are all things that just make so much. So in terms of understanding that this line is going from point A to point B, like you said, creating this trust, this transparency, coming from firsthand experience, it's been absolutely fantastic.
Well, yeah, thank you guys for that. And I just want to remind us too that it's still a lot of the same instructors, right? But what we're doing is we're changing perceptions. We're changing the way that people do things, because you don't want to lose a lot of experience, right? There's a lot of experience out there, a lot of knowledge. And just because this is, something that's new doesn't mean that it's necessarily better. We have to make meaningful changes. And this all started about 5 years ago when Nico Romain came over and completely revamped the entire coaching education department. And now both of you are products of the last 5 years. So remember what we said earlier about what we do has an impact years and years down the road.
Absolutely.
Same thing, and you asked earlier, like, what are we doing? I look at you two guys. I look at Eloisa. I look at many of the other coaches, potential instructors you are out in the audience, is that, hey, you know what? People are the biggest value that we have. And these instructors in these courses are trying to create these learner-centered environments. So when you come into a course, you have to be willing to bring your needs to it and to say, hey, here's what I would really like to improve on. Now, obviously, there's the course curriculum. We're going to help you understand what that is. But also along the way is to help meet your needs, because when you go back home, what we really want to have happen, and Mario, I understood what you were saying in Espanol with the philosophy, is that we need reality-based learning that's based off of your real life needs. And you need to get experience in practicing it and trying it. Even if you make a mistake, it's okay, right? Because there's a holistic approach to people first. So we're going to be there with you when you make a mistake. We're going to help you learn from it and grow and get better. It's not about judgment, right? It's about reflection and making sure that you understand who you are and take action steps to improve. Because when you leave the course, the learning shouldn't stop. The learning should actually continue more and more and more if the instructor in the course has done his job.
Yeah, no, sin duda, y la verdad que eso es importantísimo, Mario y Zac, muy agradecido. Zac, tenemos una pregunta del amigo Javier Cruz desde el área de la Bahía de California. ¿Cómo podemos ser parte de estos cursos educativos en los de US Soccer Federation? Zac, how can people sign up or find out more about these offerings that US Soccer has?
Yeah, so this interaction with you guys is fantastic for us to talk about this, because I know there's a lot of hungry coaches that are out there. And in fact, we talked with a representative from Europe the other day who was asking, how have you guys dealt with the pandemic and with COVID, and let us know kind of what other federations are doing. And in fact, we're ahead of the way in many countries in being able to offer online courses. Many of them don't have that. And we also have our 4-hour grassroots in-person courses. But the starting point for all of that is to go to our learning center, learning.ussoccer.com. And from there, you can take the free introductory course, which is in Spanish. It's 20 minutes. And from there, you're able to register for any of the online courses or any of the in-person courses. And we're really excited. We just had to update everything due to COVID to make everything a little bit more COVID-proof so that education goes on. So right now, we're very close to getting the 11v11 online course ready to launch. I think it'll be ready to go by first part of the year. I think we'll have one more online course that'll be ready. I think those will actually be ready in December, but we're shooting for first of the year just to make sure we have everything ready to go.
Sure.
So you have the online courses that you can take anywhere in the world, which are about 2 hours total. You can start and stop at any time. And then if you're here in the United States, you can take one of our 4-hour grassroots in-person courses. But you need to go to the Learning Center to first take the intro module and also to see the listing of courses there. Now, this is really important, I think, for the Latino community, is to request a course in Spanish. to reach out to your local association and say, hey, we have a group of 10 coaches. Can you send an instructor out to do the course in Spanish? And here's the great thing is that if your area doesn't have a Spanish-speaking instructor, that's where we as a federation help. We say, hey, Julio, can you go help Indiana teach a course? Or Julio, could you go to Iowa? Or hey, Mario, could you go over to Nevada to help instruct a course? So our duty and our power comes from people and comes from connecting people. But it starts with you saying, you, the coach, at the ground level, at the grassroots level, reach out to your local government association, right? Your soccer governing body, and request a course in Spanish because they may not know that you need it.
Así es, así es. Javier, para resumirte lo que dice Zac, obviamente, para que toda la gente aproveche y sepa, básicamente contacta a tu asociación local, primero en el US Soccer Learning Center, que es la plataforma digital de US Soccer, que para principios del próximo año, primeramente Dios, estará disponible 11 contra 11, el curso en español, estaría disponible vía virtual en la plataforma. Actualmente tenemos la primer curso, que es el introductorio, que es como 20 minutos, Zac, ¿verdad? El introductory course es como 20 minutos en la plataforma, de forma gratuita la pueden tomar cualquier persona. Y si nos pueden contactar para cualquier enlace, le podemos sin ningún problema proveerle el enlace. Y también, si vives aquí en Estados Unidos, obviamente acude a tu asociación local. Si tú y un grupo de 10 coaches quieren algo en español, por favor contacte a su estado. Si están en California, en sur de California, si están en Nevada, en Illinois, en Texas, donde quiera que estén, acudan a su asociación local y pidan ese curso en español, porque ya los materiales están disponibles. Y por segundo, si esa asociación no tiene a alguien o un instructor que habla español, es donde la federación puede decir, ok, no pasa nada, ahí tenemos a Mario en corto, él puede ir a Nevada, Arizona, Nuevo México, no pasa nada. Julio está cerca de Illinois, puede ir a Wisconsin, a Michigan o Indiana, no, y es donde el poder realmente de la federación es su gente. Es la gente, es el poder. Y es la gran fuerza, ¿no? Que es la gente. Ahí es donde, pero sí, Javier, para cualquier duda, acuda a learningcenter.ussoccer.com y ahí pueden conseguir más información sobre los cursos y también, obviamente, su asociación estatal local. Ya sé que estás, Javier, estás en San Francisco, entonces sería Cal North. Y mi amigo Kevin es el director de Cal North. Cualquier cosa, te mando el correo, mándame un mensaje y con mucho gusto te mando la información de Kevin Crow, que es el director de Cal North, y con mucho gusto lo ponemos en contacto con ustedes. Zac, we're wrapping it up. Mario, any last thoughts? We've already reached our time. Amazing how an hour flies by. You know, Mario, anything?
There's so much to wrap up on. Apart from getting to know Zac better in the conversation and seeing where his experience has taken him and where he is, I think there's so much merit to be done. What I did really take away from it all is that it's not about this idea, and these nice words about inclusion and diversity as an afterthought, rather than it's a focus. I think nailed it there, Zac, and I think it really that this is a big country. There is a lot of work to be done. The work has been planted, and it's all about these seeds. And try to be patient with the work that's being done. I'm firsthand experience. I know what it is to be within the U.S. soccer organization as a student and as an instructor. And knowing people like you and knowing that this is being a focus towards the Latino community, same thing that goes towards our values, which is to advocate, to educate, and to serve. U.S. Soccer obviously runs right aligned with that, and so I have nothing but appreciation and respect for yourself and the federation. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Yeah, Mario and Julio, thank you guys for this opportunity, for your leadership with the coaching community. It's fantastic to give people a voice, to let people be heard, to connect people. You both have a really, really powerful position that you're in, and you're doing it the right way. So thank you guys for the opportunity to do this. And thank you to all the coaches that are out there right now. But like I said earlier, now your job is to go get 5 other people and bring them with you and say, okay, hey, we're going to go move forward together, because that's the way that we can do this. So thank you to the coaches for what you do and working with these players on a daily basis. You're so lucky to work with players every day. And now a lot of us have had it taken away from the pandemic and other things. So be grateful for what you have, and make the most of it, because those people that you're coaching, those players are people, and they will grow up to be adults and the leaders of our country as we move forward. So let's think forward. Let's work together to get there. And let's not stop, because it doesn't stop. It goes every day, 24/7, 365, nonstop. We only do it together. So thank you guys.
Zac, hacia adelante, Zac. Hacia adelante, juntos, hacia adelante, trabajando juntos, creando ese puente, creando esa confianza. Muy agradecido contigo, Zac. Thank you again for your time, my friend. I know you have a very, very busy schedule. And you may, again, the best gift a person can give us is their time. And we greatly appreciate that time that you gave us tonight. Gente, Mario, Zac, a toda la gente hermosa que nos acompañó esta noche, muchísimas gracias. Seguir apoyando, seguir abogando, seguir educando, seguir sirviendo y más importante, seguir cuidándose uno al otro. Cuidándose el uno al otro. Los quiero mucho, recuerden que los quiero mucho. Feliz Acción de Gracias para todos ustedes que viven en Estados Unidos y lo celebran. Muchísimas gracias, que estén seguros. Have a great evening, everybody. Happy early Thanksgiving. See you guys next week. Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. See you guys.
Bye-bye.